And so now, Keith, let's move on to our other NBA topic, which is that expansion is incoming to Seattle and Las Vegas. And it's interesting. Kevin's going to be joining us in about 5 minutes. So we look forward to having Kevin join us pretty soon. And maybe we'll get his thoughts on this as well as a Sacramento Kings fan. Right now, we got two Sacramento Kings fans on the panel. And Kevin Dent is going to be joining us very soon.
Speaking of
And
tanking,
so
awful win last night for the Kings. Awful win last night for the Kings. What are we doing? We need to be tanking. That's what I'm just saying. I'm throwing that out there.
Well, last night the Kings got the brakes beat off of them by the Spurs.
Well, last night that was a good loss, but the night before we lit that thing. We need to.
Yes, exactly. The Kings won like four out of 5 games before Wemby came to town, and when you were talking about Wilt, it just made me think about Wemby, because Wemby is that guy of this generation now, and he can just go out there and straight up dominate. But when it comes to NBA expansion, this came from Shams Charania of ESPN on Monday morning, real early on the West Coast at 5:44 a.m. Pretty early, but not too bad if you live on the East Coast. So Shams says, Justin, the NBA will hold a vote at the Board of Governors meeting March 24th and 25th to explore adding expansion teams exclusively in Las Vegas and Seattle, with the 2 franchises targeted for the 2028-29 season. Sources tell ESPN. There is momentum for stakeholders to approve surveying what industry executives project will be bids in the $7 to $10 billion range for each team.
You take cash or
credit? You got it like that?
You maybe debit if you have if you hold it over, a little layover.
Right. Try to go get a loan. But the reason why I mentioned our Sacramento Kings fandom is everyone remembers, or most people remember, going back to 2013 when the Sacramento Kings almost moved to Seattle and became the Seattle Sonics. And Seattle fans, they've had to wait a really long time, but also Seattle fans, they now got the reigning Super Bowl champions. And the Seahawks have won 2 Super Bowls since they almost took the Sacramento Kings and made them the Sonics. But nevertheless, expansion is happening. The league is going to be just like the NFL now, going from 30 to 32 teams. We've heard rumors of Las Vegas for many, many years. The Golden Knights, actually, the Las Vegas Aces were the ones who started that trend, going from San Antonio Stars to Las Vegas Aces. Then you had the Las Vegas Golden Knights, an expansion franchise in the NHL. And now we have the Las Vegas Raiders going from Oakland to Sin City. So, Keith, between Seattle and Vegas, just what was your reaction to this? And does I think expansion was inevitable, but does it make sense for the 2 teams to go exclusively to these locations and not considering other destinations like a Nashville or something of that type?
Well, I was always under the assumption that the NBA was going to expand. That was going to happen. That's a given. When there's money, no billion-dollar corporation is going to turn it down. I don't care who you are or what you do for a living. So I knew Vegas would be one of the teams in the expansion because they've seen how that's worked out with the Raiders. And I hate to bring it up, but they're going to see how it is with your A's. Allegedly, we don't know yet, but allegedly, in Major League Baseball. I don't want to twist the knife. But
real quickly, I'll say the thing I always joke about with the A's is they are the Oakland / West Sacramento / Las Vegas Athletics.
I always like to call them now the artists formerly known as the Oakland Athletics. But you know, we can't use Sacramento in the name, I guess, but we're starting to use it on the apparel for now.
And I'm gonna get myself a jersey.
I didn't care about Vegas. As a lifelong NBA fan, a man who has loved the National Basketball Association since I was like knee high, I have said from the beginning, the city of Seattle never should have lost their basketball team. There was a lot that went into that, and you can go into the politics, you can go into David Stern's vendetta with the city. Howard Schultz sold the team to Clay Bennett. Clay Bennett had no interest in keeping the Sonics in Seattle. He did them dirty. He moved them to Oklahoma City. It's worked out great. I like that for OKC. But as a fan of a National Basketball Association team that came this close to seeing his team leave, no matter how bad they are or how bad they have been, I would have hated to have seen that happen, not just for my generation, your generation, but for the generations after us who would have never understood what being a Sacramento Kings fan was all about. Let me put it to you like this. There's one team in the National Basketball Association that has won an NBA championship in the last, well, in general, there's one team that's won an NBA championship in the NBA that does not have their team. It's the Seattle Supersonics. They won it in 1979. They don't have their team anymore. And I have gone to Seattle. It's amazing. I love it there. If I could, I would work in Seattle in the news business. I love the weather. I love the culture. I love the city. I love the fans. I got to go to a Mariners game when I was over there. They're passionate sports fans. They know their stuff. They know their info. They love their Seahawks. They love their M's. They most definitely have always loved their Seattle Supersonics. Even when they left 30 years later, they still sell Seattle Supersonics gear in Seattle. They need their team back, bring back the culture, and I hope the NBA allows them to bring back every part. Bring back the gold and yellow. Bring back the old stats. Give them back their old stats. I know Oklahoma City technically owns it because that's their franchise, but give them back their Sonics. Hopefully they will in every capacity. I need them to bring everything back so they can bring back the Rain Man, Shaun Kemp, the glove Gary Payton, the smooth stroke of Detlef Schrempf. You know, we want the Seattle Supersonics back in Seattle. They never should have lost their team in the first place. And I have friends in Seattle, and I tell them all the time, listen, it's not that I don't want you to have the Sonics. I just didn't want you to take my team and make them the Sonics. So I'm glad that the NBA has learned their lesson, not just because of the financial aspect, but because it's great for the game. Those fans are some of the loudest in the NBA. You know, Shaun, I always think about how different life would have been if they had kept that core, Westbrook, Harden, Durant, and kept them in Seattle, because they would have had the money to keep them. Does the James Harden trade ever happen? Does the big three ever get broken up? These are big scenarios because of the luxury tax situation with Ibaka, but I'm just glad that the NBA has learned their lesson. This would have never happened, obviously, with David Stern, who was a known grudge holder. Great for the game, but a known grudge holder. Thankfully, the Sonics will return back to their rightful spot. Got to get the whole Eastern Conference situation figured out. One team's got to go there. But I think from a financial aspect, it's perfect. You got Vegas, you got Seattle, and it'll be great.
It will be great. And kind of like a WWE superstar, there's part of me that wants to go along with the gimmick and just continue to bash Seattle as a 49ers and A's fan. Just hating on Seattle, but I've actually traveled to Seattle a lot in the last 5 years, and it is a beautiful city. And so a man who resides in the Pacific Northwest, not in the state of Washington, but in the state of Oregon, none other, as he would say, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Kevin Dent is now joining us here on episode 185 of Stats Over Politics. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, man. Keith, just last week we are talking about how it's been so long to have you on, and now we're 2 weeks in a row.
Well, I told Shaun that like in one calendar year, I've made as many appearances as I've had in my entire existence. So by Halloween, we're looking at like 10, you know, the way this is going.
Hey, man, we're happy to have you. We're happy to have you. I was listening on the way here. I was helping one of my friends move. We took the couch to Goodwill, and they said, yeah, we're not taking it. So we have to pivot and figure it out. So now it's sitting in my garage. That's neither here nor there. Just wanted to explain to you guys why I was late. Talking about the NBA expansion, Seattle is crazy. Just like Keith was talking about, I went to Seattle for the first time in my life. I went as a child, but this time as a man, I got to experience the culture. I went the weekend of not the divisional round. Yes, the divisional round where the Niners lost in 13 seconds. Neither here nor there. But the Seattle Supersonics culture is real. Every store I went into, every sports store I went into, if I went to a coffee shop, they're selling gear. So this is a team that this is a city that really wants their team. And like Keith was saying, do they deserve to lose their team? No. You know, do they stay if they're able to build that culture, that big three, and maybe they ever win some championships? But unfortunately, they did have to go. Now, as far as Vegas goes, I think that's a money jackpot. They're going to have a baseball team. They have a football team just to see what the Vegas Raiders have done. It's going to take a lot longer of a time to really build a solid fan base. Just for example, I went to the Chargers Eagles or the Rams Eagles game 2 years ago, and it's all green because LA, Vegas, they're such famous spots. They're getting a bunch of fans. Whether you're a Chiefs fan, whether you're an Eagles fan or a Rams fan, you're going to go because it's Los Angeles, because it's Las Vegas. So getting a place like Seattle, I feel like they'll have a chance to build more of a stability of a fan base because they already had a fan base there. When it comes to the Eastern Conference team that would leave, it would come down to the Pelicans, the Pelicans, Wolves, and the Memphis Grizzlies. I think it makes the most sense to move the Minnesota Timberwolves. We always talk about how the East is lacking talent. You get a guy like Anthony Edwards over there. People call him a superstar. Some people call him a top 5 player. Top 10 in my book. He's a certified superstar. Just to bring another superstar to the Eastern Conference would go a long way. And bringing the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Eastern Conference, they're automatically at Eastern Conference Finals, if not Finals contention every year. They made it to the Western Conference Finals twice. So everyone. I'm sure the three of us can agree that the West is a lot harder than the East. So if you're able to make it that close or that far in the West, just imagine what they would do in the East. I don't think taking a Memphis Grizzlies, who is in a middle of a rebuild, to the East, because we already have the Nets, we have the Bucks, we have a lot of teams already rebuilding. The Pelicans could be exciting. Depends on what you two think about Zion. I'm a Duke fan, so I think Zion it's coming. We saw him play the most games.
Brother.
We saw him play the most games in his career this year. Consecutively, 40+ games. So if it makes the most sense to send the Timberwolves, but I can understand sending the Pelicans. I don't understand one bit sending the Memphis Grizzlies.
Real quick, I saw it Zion Williamson Duke highlight package on TikTok. Like, just seeing him now and seeing him then,
sad.
I would have thought he would have dominated for like 10+ years. Like, just springing up, blocking shots off the glass, man. Like, it was there, man. It was there. We saw it. It's like a meteor striking through the sky.
Yeah, Kevin, I agree with you when it comes to moving Minnesota to the Eastern Conference. I completely understand your point when it comes to just competitive equity and the fact that the Wolves would be instantly contending for an Eastern Conference championship. And let's not forget, right now we're looking at Detroit as one of those contenders. To me, they're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, but Michigan and Minnesota, they're very close next to each other. So it would only make sense to have Minnesota have to play Detroit 3 to 4 times a year in the Eastern Conference when realignment comes with this expansion. And so I would be a fan of that. It would definitely help the competitive equity to have Minnesota in the Eastern Conference, but just geographically too, it makes the most sense to me to have Minnesota move to the Eastern Conference. And when it comes to NBA expansion, Keith, you alluded to the fact that the Seattle Supersonics should come back and that the Oklahoma City Thunder should cede all the history to the new Seattle expansion franchise. And according to ESPN's Tim Bontemps and Bobby Marks, the Thunder would cede the Seattle history back to the Supersonics if a team returns to Seattle. So that's very important because we all remember as Sacramento Kings fans, when they almost took the Kings and moved them to Seattle, the talk was going to be they're going to be the Seattle Sonics, not the Seattle Supersonics, because at the time, Oklahoma City wasn't willing to cede the history back to them. But now with an expansion franchise, rather than moving another franchise to Seattle, it seems like Oklahoma City is more open to that idea. And before I give the rest of my thoughts on this, I wanted to highlight a comment from YouTube as Uncle Manny says, "It's cool that Seattle and Vegas will probably get teams. I have been to Sonics games in Seattle, and it was awesome. Can Sac get a real team?" With a laughing emoji.
Don't do that, man.
Yeah, we would love to have an NBA team. Yeah, exactly. And to that point from Uncle Manny, it kind of makes me think about how Sacramento, we lost the Monarchs, our WNBA team. And I get it. Men's basketball is much more popular than women's basketball, even though the W in women's basketball in general, it's on the rise right now as we see college basketball translating to the WNBA. But I still think about the pain that I felt by losing the Monarchs and still feeling bitter that the Monarchs aren't coming back anytime soon. Vivek Ranadive said when he bought the Sacramento Kings that he was going to bring back the Monarchs, and he has not tried to do that.
He said
at
a lot
all.
of things that have not come to fruition. Just put it to you that way.
Yes.
There's been a lot of things he says that have not
Unfortunately.
happened.
Retweet.
Yes, exactly. And we have seen expansion in recent years in the WNBA, Portland, Toronto, and yet Sacramento is in Golden State, in San Francisco, the Golden State Valkyries. They have been an expansion team in the WNBA, but somehow Sacramento is never mentioned. So I'm happy for Seattle and all of their fans to be getting a team. I want to give a shout out to my friend Matthew's girlfriend, Ashley, who lives in Seattle. She's a diehard Seattle fan. And although it pained me to see her celebrating her Seahawks go on to win another Super Bowl at the expense of my 49ers, Seattle fans are loyal to the soil. They are great fans. And because the Golden State Valkyries were not a franchise until this past year when they were introduced to the league, I actually have traveled to Seattle quite frequently with my friend Matthew to go watch the WNBA because it all started in 2021 when we weren't sure if Sue Bird, one of the greatest point guards of all time in women's basketball history, and also Kevin Dent's close personal friend, I will remind everyone. But in 2021, we traveled up to Seattle, and we actually traveled to Everett, Washington, when Climate Pledge Arena was being remodeled to welcome the Seattle Kraken, the NHL expansion team. And so we traveled to Everett, Washington. The next year we came back because Sue came back for one more year. We saw her in her actual final year, and we've gone to plenty of Mariners games, Seattle Storm games, and all that fandom that Seattle has been missing with the Supersonics. They gave all that love to the Seattle Storm. And so it's been really cool. Seattle is very deserving to get an expansion franchise, and I'm really happy for them. I'm just glad that they didn't take our Sacramento Kings. And the other side of the coin being Las Vegas. When it comes to my Oakland Athletics eventually moving to Vegas, when the news initially came out, like I was very angry about it. I still am angry. Like I wore a Sell shirt to the gym today, which was for the A's needing to be sold from John Fisher. That shirt can also apply to Vivek Ranadive and the Sacramento Kings at this point. But the point being is that I initially was not happy at all about the A's moving to Las Vegas. And I always said, if the A's actually leave California and go to Las Vegas, I'm not going to be a fan of the franchise anymore. But that changed in this past year when I started dating my girlfriend, Allie, who has family who live in Henderson. And in the last year, I've traveled out to Vegas probably 4 or 5 times, and I've actually gotten to see Vegas outside of the tourist perspective. And Vegas will do very well when it comes to the NBA. As Kevin was saying, it's going to be a major moneymaker. And my biggest point to it is a couple times as I've gone out to Las Vegas to visit Allie's family, I have been on a flight with several Raiders fans, but I've also been on a flight with other NFL fans because Las Vegas has become a destination weekend for NFL fans. Kevin, have you ever traveled out to Vegas to see the Eagles or not? Not yet.
So the only time I got to see the stadium was during COVID. So I didn't really get the full effect. It was the first year they were open. So I didn't really get to get the full effect. But I mean, I've been to Allegiant Stadium and it looks amazing. And I've been to Vegas since, just driving by and seeing the culture. They're slowly starting to become Raider Nation, the black hole like we used to know in Oakland. But like I said, it's going to take a long time for that because a lot of the kids there have never had a football team to support.
Exactly. And to Kevin's point that he made about SoFi Stadium, otherwise known as Levi's South, anytime the Eagles travel to SoFi to play the Rams or the Chargers, the entire crowd is green. And that's basically what you see in Las Vegas. And I'm sure that will end up happening with the expansion franchise. I'm also sure that there will be plenty of fans who become fans of the Las Vegas team, but that's going to be outnumbered by the established fans for many years to come. And it may not be a destination weekend, but maybe it'll be a destination week, so on and so forth. And so there are going to be fans from all over the country wanting to go to Las Vegas to see their team play there and then go participate in all the antics that Las Vegas presents. And so to me, this is a home run. Nashville is a trendy city right now, and there's other cities that may want an NBA franchise, but it makes the most sense for Seattle and Las Vegas to get these teams. And so it's a good decision, in my opinion, and we shall see how it all ends up turning out. But the Sonics are finally coming back, and so congrats to all the fans in Seattle. This might be the best year ever for everyone in Seattle, from the Mariners making it to the American League Championship Series to the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, and now the Supersonics are officially coming back. I'm sure that this has just been amazing for everyone up in Seattle. As we keep